Sounds great. All right, I'm going to go ahead and screen share, give you guys my entire desktop, and then I'm going to get rid of my video because I distract myself. I'm Italian, I talk with my hands, I move around a lot. We will have the chat open, right, Jasmine? You're going to man that just in case any questions come in.
Yep, you'll
Um,
use that Q&A feature down at the bottom and we'll help answer those.
awesome. So feel free, Jasmine, to interrupt me if someone needs me to stop. All right. So today we're going to talk about DocGens. And for those of you who may not know or are very new to Filevine, a DocGen is a template that we can code and then upload into Filevine. So at the click of a button, you can have any of your templates generated to bring in information such as client name, date of birth, right? Thinking on a high level, retainers, fee agreements, medical requests, things like that. So we're going to start from the very beginning. The first thing that you want to do when you pick a template is you're going to decide, where am I going to put it? So the template we're going to use today is, if you are a PI firm or attorney or support staff, you are very familiar with a reduction request, right? You might send them out to providers, lien holders. So we just have a very simple one here, full of lots of code. So the fact that I'm going to send this out to a provider immediately in my mind, I want to make sure that I'm putting that in the correct section. Now, the reason why I'm saying this is because in my template, we're going to go to use Darth Vader today. We're going in space. So in the Darth Vader template, the medical section where I have all of my providers is a collection section. So for those of you who may be new to Filevine, a collection section is a collection of items. That means I can add an infinite, there is a cap, but it's like 300,000. So we say infinite, an infinite amount of items into here with the same information, right? So I'm going to go to Dr. Donald Duck because I've already built out this item card. So in here, it's important that I put the document in here because I'm pulling in the provider information. Now, I cannot pull set collection section to collection section, excuse me, it's a mouthful to say. That's where we would require an upgrade into a Fusion, and that's a whole nother free help session. So we want to make sure that the information that is surrounding our document is there for us to grab from, right? Now, I could pull from client contact card, right? So that's up here in the left-hand corner. You see your client, right? That's high-level information. I can always pull that into a document no matter where I am. I can also leverage from other sections that are what we call static sections. So I'm going to go into intake to show anyone who may be new to Filevine what a static section is. That is a free scrolling section from top to bottom. It has one set of information, right? I'm not adding items, I'm not adding cards and building out a section, right? So I can pull from here. A very popular field that you are going to pull from, another one of those high-level built-in fields, is your incident date. So once I've decided where I want to have the document live, the next step is that I need to actually add what we call a widget. So I'm going to scroll down here. It's going to look like a field, right? It's not a text field where you're actually filling in. Widgets are action fields. And so that's what it's going to look like here. Now, how do you get that in there? You have to have 2 advanced permissions if you're going to upload a DocGen. So up here in the 3-line menu or that hamburger menu, when you go to advanced, you need to have the customs editor. That's going to allow you to go in and actually add the widget. And you also need to have DocGen set up because once we add the widget where we're going to push the button to generate the document, then I have to go in and actually upload the template. So in the customs editor, let's start with step 1. You want to pick your section. We already know that we're going to go ahead and look in the medical section, right? That's where I want to have that. So I have to choose a project type. Now ours is filled. We have a ton of them in here. You're going to only be looking at like maybe 1 or 2. So just ignore all of this. And I'm going to go pick the one that I know that Darth Vader is created from. And then I'm going to find my section. Now, if you have a lot of sections, a little tip for everybody, Control F or Command F will work in Filevine. It's actually going to be your best friend if you're in the customs editor. So you can go ahead and look for your sections. And even better, you can look for fields within those sections. So what we're looking at here, I went a little fast there, but if you just click on your section, it's going to open up this list down here. And these are all of our fields. So I'm going to go back into Darth Vader. Should have left that tab open. Another little trick there, I don't know if you guys noticed that, but if you right click on any like hyperlinked item in Filevine, you can open the link in a new tab. This actually does work across all browser. I don't know if anyone knows that trick, but I use it very often. That way I can have multiple tabs open and I don't lose my spot. It's a little trick for you guys there. So in here, I'm going to go into medicals and let's pretend that this is not here, right? This is blank, but it is a reduction request. I do want it underneath my balance payments and reductions. What I like to do when I add a field is I always go and look for the field where it's going to be, right? So Filevine is going to look for columns and it's going to look at rows, right? So kind of like Excel, think of cell numbers, right? B2, so on and so forth, except Filevine uses numbers. So what I like to do is I grab this, whoa, there we go. I'm going to copy this. I'm going to use my handy dandy Control F and I'm going to look for that field. So I can see that this is in row 25 and it's the first one in that spot, right? And we do know that because if I come over here, row doesn't matter as much really, it's where it is in that space. So I've already added one here, but let's start one from the beginning. So this little plus icon or add a field or widget will open up this box for you. So as I had mentioned, actions such as DocGens, those are widgets. The first thing you're going to do is select your type. Now, a little tip here, you will notice that there is an option for a single DocGen widget as well as a multi. I'm a big fan of best practice being to use that multi-template, even if you're only uploading one document right now. For instance, I only have one reduction request drafted. I'm only uploading one. But in the future, if I wanted to add a different one with different language, and I had only picked the single DocGen, I can't easily update that button. So a little trick, kind of a little pro tip, but I like to always go for the multi-template. Now, what this does is it creates a drop-down and you can search within the drop-down, right? So if it's reduction request 1 or reduction request 2, you can look for it. Now, your widget prompt is going to be the actual name that you want the field, right? So this one, I just put reduction request. It is good practice too to get in the habit of adding reduction request generation or DocGen, things like that. So if you ever go to pull up reporting, you can easily identify that. So I'll just add a test in here. Now down here, you can add tags. So documents, when you generate them, can automatically be tagged. Tags in Filevine are custom filtering. They're an amazing way for you to data mine and filter your data right from the front end of Filevine, right? You can definitely pull them in reporting. But for instance, if I had the tag, this is our new sandbox, so I don't think we have anything. But for instance, if I had reduction in here, I could easily add that. So anytime somebody goes to generate that reduction request, it's automatically going to tag it. What that means is I can go to my document search and I can search up hashtag reduction. I could go to my project documents and I can search hashtag reduction, which we will look at that section after we generate this. So that's a cool little tool where you guys can build your own custom filtering within Filevine. Now, once you have a default folder structure set up, which we don't right now in our new sandbox, you will have the ability to put this document into any folder or subfolder. Another tip here, a lot of my clients like to keep a drafts folder. So that way all of their DocGens will upload into a drafts folder, and then any of their final copies that are the PDF or the Excel, whatever that may be, they go ahead and upload that, and that drops into the main folder, such as medical requests, insurance, liens, so on and so forth. Now down here is where I was talking about the rows and the columns, right? So in here, we know that we are row 25, right? And let's say that I just wanted to snug it right there at the very end of the row. I know that I would put it on 25-3. And just to call out too, we do have some great trainings on the customs editor that we've done in the past. So if you really want to deep dive into how to use the customs editor, go right to vineskills.com and you can look those up. Now, another tip down here is you can actually add contingencies onto your field. So I'm going to come back here and show you what I mean by that. So to keep our sections nice and clean, you might opt for having a yes, no that will show our hide fields below it. So if I hit unknown here, I can see I didn't build that contingency on that one. Everything else goes away. Ideally, this one would have it as well, and we can actually check that together. So back to the customs editor. Once you've gotten everything in here and you click create, you're now going to have the widget that will show up in DocGen setup. So that's that second advanced permission that I spoke about a few minutes ago. You then have the ability to go in there and upload. So I'm not going to hit create since I already have one created, but let's go open up the one that I created earlier. Let's take a look at advanced properties, and you could see that I didn't set the contingency because I just added this way too fast. And I can see that here because it's showing when I hit unknown. So what I can do here is come to this drop down. You can see all of the fields that exist within this section that I can build a contingency off of, right? So I'm looking for the show reduction information. So let's go back in here. There it is. I'm going to say when it equals yes, right? So it's a yes, no when it equals yes. And then I'm going to make myself a little internal note. So this is another great tip for the customs editor. Anytime you build a contingency, go ahead and make yourself a little note so that when you are scrolling through your fields, which you can see back here, you'll have those little notes. Let's wait for that to update. And there we go. Oh. And let's go back. I'm going to give this a quick little refresh. Anytime you make an update in Filevine, if you refresh or sign back in, it will appear. And so if I click unknown, you can see now this is nice and clean until I go ahead and click yes. Okay, so let's go into the second half of this, which is going to be coding and uploading, right? So I have my widget, it's there, it's ready to go. I've named it, I have the contingency set, and now I'm ready to code and upload my document. So let me grab, I think it's hiding behind here. There it is. We'll grab that document back. So in here, we're just going to take a look at this. I just want everyone to skim over these codes in here. These codes are generated by Filevine every time you create a field, right? So just like we were in the customs editor creating a field for our DocGen, right in here, every field that we get a yes, no, there we go, automatically creates a code. Now, Filevine recognizes those codes in your documents when you put them in there. As you can see, we have a few in here already. It recognizes those, and it's going to take whatever information that you have in that field, in that project, and drop it in, right? So today long, right? Merge code, it's going to drop today's date in. It's going to be the long date spelled out, April 23rd, 2025, right? In here, I have provider address block. So going back to when we were looking, when we had Donald Duck up here at the top, right? I'm referencing this field. Now, there's a couple ways that you can get these codes. One of the ways is to go into the DocGen setup and to look up the field code. So let's look at that way. I just showed you one way. So I guess that one's the second way. One way is you can come in and you can copy it right from the customs editor. But you have to be a little careful there because if you're pulling from, let's say, a contact card, there's going to be additional coding after here. So let's cancel this. I don't want to change anything. And we're going to go over to DocGen setup. So remember, it's from your hamburger menu, go to advanced. You're going to go to DocGen setup. We're going to choose our project type. Again, you're only going to have a couple there. The next thing you have to choose is your section, right? So this is only going to show the sections where you actually have a widget already uploaded. So if you don't do the customs editor step first and you code your document, you get all excited and you come in here to upload it and you don't see it, I've done that before. So just go back to the customs editor, add that widget, and you're ready to go. So we're going to pick the medicals. And you can see right here, I only have one DocGen widget in that section. That makes sense. It's brand new for me. But if I had several, this would also be a drop down, right? So pay attention to that. If you don't see what you're looking for, and if it has an arrow, it'll be another drop down. So I've already coded and uploaded here, but what I want to bring your attention to first is that field list, right? So these codes that I keep talking about, those are the actual field selectors in Filevine. So that's what these are right here. Now, if you click on this, you're going to come to a table of contents, if you will, of all of the sections that and all the codes that you can pull from within this section. So this is really, really helpful because as I mentioned, you cannot pull across collection sections, but there are some fields that are available to me in, for instance, leads, right? I could pull in high level information. I can pull in totals if I have currency fields, right? Totals, averages, low. I could pull in counts of items and things like that, but I'm pretty limited. So I'll show you what I mean by that before we deep dive into the meds one, because that's going to have all the codes that we need in here. And of course, this is going to take a while because we're on a webinar. Why wouldn't it? There it is. So you'll notice here, right, if I have a date field, I can't actually pull in that date, but I can pull in like the earliest item created, average amounts, things like that, right? So that's why it's not ideal. You want to make sure that the document is in that section where you're pulling from. So going back over here, I'm going to show you how I got to the provider. Now, one thing that I do want to point out about these codes that will make coding DocGens a lot easier is that they all have this special formula, if you will. The very first word before this period here is your section selector. The second one is going to reference the actual field name, right? So we know that was provider, right? We've been looking at Dr. Donald Duck, he's in provider. Now, the third one you may see is when you're going to have something like such as a contact card, where there's going to be all these additional fields within a contact card, right? So let's go back. Let's just look at Donald Duck's contact card. So what I mean by that is when I open up this contact card here, every single one of these fields has their own code for me to pull from, right? So I can pull last name. I could pull just the prefix, right? The address block, so on and so forth. So that's how you're going to see that there. So when you're looking up contact cards, just keep that in mind and use that Control F. So I'm going to show you here. Let's go to the medicals item because that's where I am. Want to make sure I can pull in provider. And I'm going to try to get ahead. Oh, I knew it was going to do that. Get ahead of it. Control F or Command F if you're on a Mac. So I'm going to go and look up provider. And I know I'm looking for the address block. Right? I use this code very, very often. I knew exactly what it was called, right? Now, this address block here is available for client. It's available for any other contact card that you have within here, right? So you'll get very used to seeing those if you're coding a lot of DocGens. Those codes do remain the same, whereas your section and your field selector will change.
And just
oh yeah, go ahead, Jasmine.
With addresses, emails, and phone numbers, there are several options. So you'll notice this just says provider address block, but if you look at provider address 8, there's also block option 7, there's a block option, so on and so forth. The numbered ones select, either the first address that you put in, second, so on and so forth. Sarah, what is I haven't actually used the one that you're pulling. What does that one do?
Oh, so that one is always going to default to the first one. And it's something that I use very often where it's just like in my brain not to put the number. So address block 1 and address block just as it is are essentially the same code, this one here. So these two are the same as doing 1. And to Jasmine's point, if you start putting labels on your addresses as well, you could then actually pull out that address specifically. So let's say this one was work. I can now look for client's work address block. So instead of relying on the numbers. So let's just pretend, right? So what Jasmine said here, this would be address 1, this would be address 2, right? So you can very specifically call out certain addresses within the block. Now, where I find that might be helpful is especially with like medical providers, maybe address 1 is always the actual physical location, and then it's in your processes to make sure that address 2 is always the provider request facility, right? And again, you can also use the labeling. So the labeling will help you a lot, especially when you really want to pinpoint that specific address. And while we're in here, that actually works for phone numbers, emails, anything here. You can have multiple, and you will see those phone 1, phone 2, email 1, email 2, all as codes in here as well. So you can see them here.
Those labels are customizable, part of that kind of advanced updating that you an admin could do for you all in context setup. But yeah, those are customizable, and then you can use them in these replacement codes.
Yep. Yep. If you have the custom setup advanced option, you can come in, you can update your types and your labels. You can see that they go on a contact level, and then you can drill it down to phones, addresses, and emails in here. Yeah. Awesome call out. So in here, I just want to focus over here on the codes now. So we found our address block over here, and that's going to pull in the entire name. So it'll pull in Donald Duck's full name, and then it's going to pull in that address block exactly as it appears. I think it's 123 Main Street, Disney, etc. Now down here, I want to take a look over here at these client codes. So if you're doing a lot of coding at DocGens, you're going to get to know these client codes like the back of your hand. This client.name1, that's going to pull in your client's full name, right? Darth Vader. Client birth date, that's another one. Now, all of these are available in here. Don't forget to use your Control F in here. It's going to be your best friend. So you can see down here, I have that birth date code in here. Now, incident date here, I want to call out a tip that you can do with your date field. So if I leave this incident date exactly as it looks here, right? So this is coming from intake. This is one of those built-in fields in a static section. If I leave it in here, it's going to look something like this, right? It's going to just have the month, the date, the year. It's going to have those dashes. But if I actually want that to be spelled out, there's a trick that you can do with your codes, and I'll show you where to find those, but you can do this. I know there's a name for this, but it's a straight line to me, a straight vertical line. And you can add long date after it. And that's going to tell Filevine when I generate this, don't just put this out as 4/23/25. I actually want this to say April 23, 2025 in here. Now, these little tricks work in a couple different ways. Another one that this is very popular for that we can add, I think they're called, and I'm going to, booleans. Jasmine, I might be wrong on the name of what they call these.
I say booleans.
Booleans? Okay. I always think of like pirates and like pirate booty. So I just automatically think of that. But anytime you guys are in any of your field coding pages, at the very bottom, and you can see it's the first thing that I do the Control F for is the bool. And it brings you right to the bottom where you have all of these options here where you can format. There's that long date, right? Short date, you can do just the year. Maybe you're just putting in 2025 somewhere, things like that. The next one I want to show you, so I wanted to show you this and call it out right here, is one where, let's say you're bringing in somebody's social security number, but you only want to bring in those last 4, right? You don't have to create a field separately from their actual social security number. We can actually use this code here. So I'm going to bring it back a little bit now to the contact card to show you exactly what I mean by that. So let's go back to Darth Vader. We're going to open up his contact card. Now on his second tab here, so a little call out about contact cards, because we did talk about the ability to edit. The contact info here, you can't change any of these fields. You can create custom labels, but these are all built into Filevine. So instead, Filevine allows you to add additional tabs where you can add those custom fields. One of the custom fields that's very popular is social security number, right? So this one is set up that we don't want any dashes. Of course, you can have it set up however you want. So we have that social security number, right? And I don't want to create a whole separate field for last 4. They're unnecessary, right? I can get that to pull in. So what I want to do is I'm going to go back and we are going to look for, oops, I didn't do my copy paste. I definitely forgot to copy. So let's copy that. I'm going to do a copy. I'm going to paste and I'm going to find that. Now I want to call something out here. I'm glad this brought me to this one first. This can get a little confusing. So if your contact types, your contact custom fields aren't set to specific contact types, you're going to see all of these appear for ones that you're just not looking for. For instance, an authorized representative, right? We're looking for client. And you can also see here, my count is up to 20, right? Because all these contact cards can have those special customized fields. So what I'm actually looking for, and I always like to look, you can definitely look here, but that can be a little bit mumbo jumbo, if you will. I like to look right in the middle to look. I'm like, okay, this is for the school. I'm looking for the client, right? And there it is. I can see it right here. Looks like that one is for meds. I don't need that. I just need this code here. So the client custom.ssn is going to give me a code for a social security number. So let's do SSN, right? Oh, I didn't copy that one, but I know this one by heart. It's client custom because it is a custom field, right? It's my client's contact card, but it's in custom. And the field selector I know is SSN because it shows it to me right here. And now here's where you do that creative Boolean, Boolean cube. And we can do left colon 4. And now that's saying that I just want that 6789 pulled from Darth Vader's contact card. I don't want the whole thing. Now, if I want to come in, I can add X2 and then another dash right. So now this will appear with all these X's and then 6789 here. Another item to point out in your DocGens down here. So I do have just my signature typed in, but if you have images of signatures, right? Those signature blocks, things like that, you can actually upload images into templates. So when you're editing these templates, it's not just about coding. You can leverage all of the items or all the formatting items, if you will, right in Word, right? So if I bold, if I italicize, that's all going to stay. The one thing I do want to call out that you may have already noticed is that the codes are cap sensitive. So in here, you cannot have this be all caps, right? So let's say, for instance, this client name right here, I want that to be capital. So in Word, we would just come in and probably hit uppercase, right? Or we would just type all that out in caps. But with Filevine, you actually have to add another one of those booleans to the end here. And it's actually going to be the word, let's see if I can spell this right, capitalize. So that is at the end of the doc. It is one of the ones that you will see when you're looking up those field codes. You will see that here, right? I can do title case. I can do lowercase. So that's another one of those tricks. So that's going to be one. Remember that one because that's a very popular one you'll use because codes are case sensitive in here, as you can see. So once I'm satisfied, I think I've got everything coded the way that I want it to be coded. Then I can go ahead and upload it because I want to test it. So make sure that you are testing all of these to make sure that you didn't forget anything or miss anything because I've definitely done it. So I'm going to go ahead. We can get rid of that. So I have to go back to my DocGen setup, right? That's my second advanced tool. I have to pick my section, right? And I'm going to pick my field, and then I'm going to upload directly from my computer. Now, the first time you do, there's going to be a nice big plus green button here. You can also click this to replace if you need to, but you actually don't need to replace this every time you want to edit it. You can edit in place. So that is something you can do with your templates, and I'm going to show you how you can do that once we generate it. But before we do that, I want to show you this one here. So I'm going to double click it so you guys can get a preview. This one was already pre-coded in here. I actually put the social security number up here on that one. But we can see we have all the codes. Now, when you go to upload the document here, if you have any errors in your coding, one of the really nice things is that Filevine will call that out for you. And so let's say, for instance, you forgot a bracket, right? Or you accidentally capitalized something and it shouldn't be. Filevine will pop up on the screen and it's going to say invalid code and actually give you the code, which is really nice. I depend on that a lot. I really do. Another thing I want to call out in here, if anybody saw my Tip Tuesday video that we released yesterday in preparation for today, one of the things that I called out is one of my favorite things to do with DocGen is to actually code the titles, right? So we've talked so much about all these fancy things that we can do inside the body of a document, but you can see here that you can actually code from within the section right into the title. So this one, for instance, is going to come out reduction request to Daffy Duck or Dr. Daffy Duck, right? Now, a very popular one I see is client name, right? So Filevine is always going to generate a DocGen with the date and timestamp. That's default. That's how everything will generate. But whatever before that in your title, you can actually control. So a lot of my clients like to do like client last name, first name. Maybe they do client full name in parentheses afterwards. You absolutely can do that in your titles. So we've got this uploaded, right? We've gone through all of our steps. We've added our widget. We've got it uploaded. I think my codes are correct. I know they are because it's uploaded. So now let's go test it. So let's go back over to Darth Vader. We're going to close this out. Now I have already added information because I did test this to make sure that this was going to work for us. But first thing you want to do is make sure all your information is already entered. Now, the really nice thing about DocGens, and some of you might have already thought of this, is you're not going to be entering that information every time. This information is already going to be there, right? Now, assuming you've already entered the provider because you've sent out requests for records and billing, which is why you're asking for a reduction request, all this information is going to be already filled out for you. More importantly, obviously, for buddy reduction requests, we want to make sure that's filled out down here. So I'm going to come down here and I'm just going to hit generate on here. You'll also notice that I didn't follow my own rule on this, and I'm pretty disappointed in myself that I added this pretty hastily because I did create this as a one DocGen upload. Ideally, this would be a drop down that I can then go through and pick which reduction request I want, right? Just in case there's different language. A little trick I'm going to show you because I am so impatient. Sometimes if you refresh Filevine, it kicks that DocGen into gear, and it did, and it will populate it for you. Most DocGens, especially very small ones like the one we just did that's pulling in very basic information, should only take about a few seconds. But just in case, I'm going to blame my Zoom. I'm going to say it's the webinar slowing it down. You could just hit a quick little refresh. So here we go. We have our title. It pulled in Donald Duck. Maybe I would even want to put in full name extended in there, right? So I could change that code so it pulls in Dr. Donald Duck, right? Maybe it's facility name. You'll see here it has the date and then it has that timestamp. It is in military time. I'm on East Coast, so this is pulling in at 1434. Now, clicking on this document here, let's take a look and open up that preview pane, which will open automatically in a new tab. Notice I didn't have to do my right click trick in there. And I'm going to take a look and make sure that everything came in correctly. In here, I noticed I messed up a code. I don't know if anyone caught that. I'm surprised nobody chatted in that instead of putting in right 4, I put in left 4. So it brought in the beginning of the social. So that's definitely a reason why you would want to go ahead and test your DocGens, make sure you've coded them correctly. So that one called out to me pretty obviously because I know the end is 6789. Here's our date of incident pulling from intake, my current balance, which I have right here, and then the amount that I'm actually requesting right in here. Now, let's say I need to make an edit, right? So I don't want to go in and update Darth Vader or update the code and then come in and regenerate it. I really need to get this out. I can just edit this right from here. So Filevine uses edit in place for Word, Excel, and PowerPoint. So those are all supported, as well as PDF. Filevine has its own Docs Plus PDF editor. Up here in the right-hand corner, if you click on this little pencil icon, this probably will pop out on my other screen, so I'll have to bring it over. It's going to automatically use whatever you have to open up Word-supported documents. Mine is Word. And it's going to automatically open that up. Now, there's two things I want to draw your attention to. At the very, very top, and I know it's very small, but where we see that floppy disk or the save icon, for anyone who doesn't know, that's a floppy disk. I see this little circle and it does have little arrows in there. That's triggering me immediately to know that this is synced with Filevine. So any changes I make in this document and I hit save, it's going to save that version as a new version in here, right here in Filevine. I can also tell too, it is synced because after my timestamp, I have this sequence of crazy numbers, letters going on. So if you see these two things here, you automatically know you're synced with Filevine. You can come in and you can make your changes. You can hit save. And now that document is updated. So I'm going to show you. I'm going to close this out. I'm going to go in. I'm going to reopen that document back into the preview. And you can see I hit save and reopened it, and it saved my changes. That's one of the great things about DocGens and Filevine, right? It really is kind of a one-stop shop of where you are. There's a lot of things you can do aside from just edit. So if you look at these icons up here, just from the preview pane, I could print this, right? So you could do a print to PDF, you could print it because you're going to mail it. I can email it in here. So this one actually is connecting to my Outlook, which is weird. I haven't done an Outlook demo in a long time, so I'm surprised that one's popping up. But this is creating an email with the document attached for me. Let me see if I can get that to open. There we go. Here it is. So it's already attached. I can go in. It's going to be from my email, and I can create the email, the subject, everything in here with it already attached. Now, of course, you can download it as well from here, but I want to show you there's more. So that's what you can do from the preview pane. So remember, clicking on the link opens up the preview. You have some options here, but if you click this down arrow, you now have even more options of what you can do. Now, this is a new sandbox for us, so we don't have fun things turned on in here, like facts. We're missing a couple other things in here too, right, Jasmine? We usually have a couple more options.
Yeah, the document is locked. So you can see that there's a little lock.
Thank you for pointing that out. Yes, Jasmine, good eye.
That's an indication that either you or somebody else has the document open for editing. So there's a limited number of things that you can do with a locked document. If you know that you were the one that opened the document and you've like closed it out and everything like that, you can just refresh the page and it should remove that lock for you. And then you get a like longer list. You'll still see, like, if your firm doesn't have faxing in Filevine, you'll still see that as an option on there. Just know that like if you don't have faxing, that's not really going to go anywhere in Filevine, but you'll see a longer list once it's unlocked.
Awesome. Thank you, Jasmine. I did not even pay enough attention to know it was locked, and I should have called that out. So that's one of Filevine does not allow that live editing, right? So if someone else does have it locked, you're going to see that. And as Jasmine mentioned, what you can do with that document is going to be limited in there. So here's that menu I was looking for here, where I definitely have a couple more options in here. One of the newest ones they added was that I can create a PDF right from here. So I did show you in the preview, you can click that little printer icon, you can do a to PDF. If I click a to PDF here, it's actually going to create a PDF document and it's going to drop it over into my documents section. So we talked a lot about managing our documents from within the sections, right? Because that's where we're actually going to be working on them. But we do still have, I call it that filing cabinet or even that paper file, which still makes me cringe a little bit. But that's kind of what your document section is. Your folder tree is there and everything is filtering in, right? So when we created that widget in the beginning of the training, and we talked about auto filing it, this is where it's going, over here into that document tree. So from here, you can also do several things. A share link is great. You can share things once, or you can do bilateral from folders, which is awesome. I'll show you guys a little bit of that in documents. I know we're coming a little close on time and I want to make sure I get over into that section. But one thing I do especially want to show from here is one thing that I used a lot as a paralegal who used Filevine. So this reduction request, let's say it was something that was maybe like a demand or a pleading. It needed an attorney review, or even maybe just this reduction request. Right from here, after I've generated it, I've made my updates, changed my social security number, and I've saved it. If I click note this, I can go ahead and send this right over to my attorney. Please review right from here. And you'll notice down here, it's letting me know that I'm actually creating a task for Jasmine, and it's going to alert her, and it's actually going to bring the document into the activity feed. So when Jasmine gets that task in her feed, right, or she's in the project activity feed and she clicks this link, it's the same as you clicking from here or the same as you opening from here. So that's one of the really nice things about Filevine is all of those things are linked together, right? Because essentially it is just one living document. We just created all these spaces that you can click on it and get to it for convenience. So I'm just going to save this so I can show you what this will look like. I'm going to bring you over to the activity feed and you'll see right here, here it is. It's a task for Jasmine. And again, you can click on this, right? And you can see that we have that right there. So heading over to documents for the last 7-8 minutes or so. So over here right now, I don't have a folder tree set up. So I had mentioned when we created the widget, you can create that default folder structure. So when you are setting up your projects or your templates, excuse me, in your customs editor, you can add it a default folder structure, correspondence, drafts, insurance, litigation, et cetera, meaning every time you open a project, that will appear here ready to go for you, right? You can also include subfolders. So that's what you would see here along the left-hand side, right? We don't have anything, so our reduction request just landed in here. We didn't connect it to anything, so it's just gonna land into what we call that root folder, right? Or that client folder in here. Now from here, you will see the same options that you saw in the drop-down that grew over there in the section, but you'll also have some additional things that you can do to a document after you have it generated. So up here, I don't know if anybody here uses bait stamping. It was something I used a lot as a litigation paralegal. I bait stamped the heck out of all of my exhibits. You can do that right from here. So I can have several of my exhibits all pulled into here and go ahead and click here. Now, one tip I'm going to talk about with that are tagging. So I had mentioned, right, if you were to tag reduction, every time I generated that document, it's going to automatically tag reduction. Now, let's say if you got really creative with that and you started doing that with all of your documents that would potentially become an exhibit. Police report, medical records, medical billing, demands, deck pages, anything at all, right? Just by simply uploading it to a button or generating it, it adds the tag exhibit. One of the things I used to do all the time, I would come in here and then I could easily filter all of my documents by the word exhibit. Now it'll pull all of those into one page, no matter where that document is stored. I get all of them right here. I can select all of those documents in one right here. Let's pretend, let's use our imagination. And I have, let's say 10 documents here. And then I can click bait stamp. And doing bait stamping through here, I could also bring in other documents. So maybe I forgot something, right? I could still go and search my project and bring in additional documents. I can upload from my computer or drag and drop here as well. Now, one of the other fun features in here too is your combiner tool. The reason why I'm bringing that up is because the combiner function is going to, or the pop-up rather, is going to look very similar to this. So over here is where you can configure that, right? We have our advanced options. This probably looks very familiar to anyone who's bait stamped in another PDF formatting tool, where you can add your prefix and all of that here, the number of digits, and hit start. And it's going to go ahead, and I call this the domino tracker because it runs just like the domino tracker. And there you go. I have a brand new folder. So as I mentioned, it's the same process if you also want to combine documents. One more call out I want to call out in here too. And actually, this is probably a really good tip across all of Filevine. Always look for a more menu or a three-dot menu or a down arrow, because Filevine is really big on additional options, and having ways to filter and being able to do all of these things from right where you are, right? So I didn't have to come all the way over here into the doc section to email this, right? I know that I can do that from the down arrow, right from the button I generated from, right? Or maybe I'm just going to fax it from there, whatever that may be. So over here, I just want to open this up to show you, very similar to what you guys saw before. In here, I have all of those same options over here in documents that I would also have in the down arrow in the section in here. I was trying to rush a little in the end because I wanted to leave it open if there were any questions that came through, Jasmine, or if anybody wanted to jump in that Q&A and ask any questions, or if there's anything you want me to kind of re-review, I'm more than happy to. I'm sorry if I spoke really fast. I had a lot of caffeine in preparation.
Can it be generated as a PDF instead of a Word document or attach as a PDF?
Ooh, that's a great question. So with a DocGen, you cannot have it automatically generate into a PDF, but you can do that with a Fusion. So that's that upgrade.
You can also create a like fillable PDF as a DocGen. That process works a little bit different than the Word document that you saw today. So if you do have a fillable PDF, you can do that, but you can't have the system started off as a Word document and automatically convert to a PDF.
I was seeing if I could show a quick example. I don't know that I have a fillable field in here, so it might reject me. But it would be the same process as before, where you would add the widget, you would name it, all of that, and then when you, oh, it took it. I must have one in there. When you come in, you just have to make sure that the PDF has those fillable fields. So a lot of your court forms already have them, things like that. And then once you do that, you can see it uploaded it. But right now, even though it's uploaded, there's nothing there, right? So if you come to this little cog icon, yep, I had two hidden in there. You can see it's actually calling out my fillable fields, right? So you can imagine if this was one of those court forms that you have like 10 different things. And when I come in here, it's actually a little simpler than doing a Word document because I don't have to search for the code. I could just start typing in client full name, and there it is. I can pull it in. Right. And then once I hit save, now generating that is all going to be the same. You're going to go in, you're going to click the button, but instead you're going to have that PDF that you can then edit afterwards as well.
What's the benefit of using the Filevine field as opposed to a Word mail merge field? They're currently using mail merge fields for additional formatting options.
Ooh, I love that. So I would say you can use them together. And actually, a fantastic example of that is where I would use them in conjunction with each other is client gender, right? So let's say I have he, she, they all throughout my document, and that's something you constantly update. You can actually use them together to have it call out that client gender. If male, it puts he. If female, it puts she. Now, if you're keeping a lot of data in a separate place to satisfy those merge codes where it's going to bring in client name, incident date, and all of that, and you're having to keep two systems, it might be worth it to consider if you're having to use Filevine as that one-stop shop and that information gathering to keep it all in there and use those codes. I actually I just want to show this really quick, Jasmine. I had pulled this document out in case somebody asked about this. Here are the merge codes. So if anyone's familiar with them, those are the ones you hit by Control and F9. You can add in those brackets. But here's a couple examples of ones that we have pre-made. So it's already calling out that client code, which would actually be custom gender. And then you can see that we've added those in. So you, in some instances, don't even have to choose either or. You can actually have them work together. I don't want to save that because I'll mess something up in there. These are great questions.
Can you have logic in DocGen templates for PDFs? We have a client and injured party fields.
Yes, you can. I think it's a little trickier, and I would have to go back into our internal Slack because I know we've brainstormed this one before. But yes, you can. You can do those if-then statements in a PDF as well. I wish I was capable of showing you on the fly the very moment right now, but it is something that you can do.
And
Another
somebody
great question.
if this recording will be available for us to watch again later. And yes, it will be available on our website, usually by the end of the week. We do have a whole host of other videos on there as well. So you can feel free to take a deep dive into those. Any
Yes.
questions? And I did put in the chat a link directly to where you can find those recorded sessions. Excuse me. So
Thank
what
you.
Sarah's showing you all is kind of our upcoming sessions. And then here is where all of the actual videos from our free help are located. You'll notice that free help is highlighted at the top there. So if you want to explore other things, you can do that. And you should be able to use the find feature on this page as well. So you can, search DocGens down the line. It's obviously going to be a little bit lower on the page. And so you'll be able to search for that wherever it falls.
Mm-hmm. And speaking of fusions, I know there's a fusion one in here. So if anyone is curious about what I was talking about when I was talking about fusions and grabbing data, check out this. I know there's a good one. It's probably with Derek on our team, actually, if I had to guess.
Yeah, and next towards about a month from now, like 4 weeks, we'll have another fusion session. So
there it is.
yep.
Nice call out. Yep. So if anyone wants to jump in there, watch some videos first and then join that session, I can promise you it'll be a great one.
Perfect. I don't see any other questions. Sarah, thank you so
Okay.
much, as always, for your wealth of knowledge. Hopefully you all learned something. If you did want to engage in our services, or you're like, hey, I understand the basics of DocGens, but I need some help, if then formatting or whatever else you need, we are here to help. Feel free to send an email. I forgot to put mine in Sarah's email, so my apologies, but it is sarah@vineskills.com or jasmine@vineskills.com. And hopefully you all have a great rest of your day, and we'll talk to you later.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks so much. Bye-bye.